sorry to say that our Minister of Music, Dr. Ben Riggs, was not available tonight, and our second in command is on a plane to Paris if they haven't gone on strike. So what you're getting is me, an amateur, but in that sense, I'm a real amateur because the root of that word means you do something because you love it. And I have loved singing in the choir here for possibly more years than I want to admit. Anyway, so they asked me what I talked about our music. Oh, okay. They asked me what I talked about our music, and I'm very happy to do that. First, a little historical context. As you no doubt know, Henry VIII split from the Roman Church over a political matter. Essentially, he wanted a divorce. This was not so much a doctrinal matter. Well, similarly, so the Church of England, which he then became the head of, was very similar to the Roman Church, except for that they translated everything into English. And similarly, the Episcopal Church broke from the Church of England with great regret and sorrow, it says so in the prayer book, simply because the colonies were rebelling against the King of England, who was head of the Church of England. So this should explain why our liturgy is very similar to the Roman Catholic liturgy. And so is our music in its historic background and tradition. So it's rooted in the Catholic Mass. We don't say Mass typically, some Episcopal carisms. We call it the Eucharist, but it's got the same sections. The processional, as the clergy comes in. We do a lot of music. I put a couple of copies of each of last Sunday's service bulletin on the tables. I don't have enough for everybody. But if you flip through that, you'll see just how much of our service is sung or chanted. Coming from what they call the ordinary of the Catholic Mass. The Kyrie in Lent, the Lord have mercy, the Gloria when it isn't Lent, the Sanctus, the fraction anthem, when you break the bread into fractions, it's called the fraction anthem. When there's the memorial acclamation, we remember his death, we proclaim his resurrection, we await his. Now there are lots of settings for each of these pieces of this standard service music. And these are in the hymnals. I put a couple on each table in the S section, which is about the first fifth of the hymnal. It's all S music. For example, this last Sunday, we sang the Sanctus and the Kyrie in a beautiful setting by Franz Schubert. So a lot of it will be plain chant, and I'll say a little bit more about plain chant later. Others of it is other parts of the service music are more recently composed. And of course, the hymns. Our hymnal draws from a great variety of sources, of course, as I dare say most of yours do. From world music, Africa, Caribbean, the Lutheran hymns of the Reformation, but they tend to predominantly be English composers singing originally English texts. So I thought I'd talk a little bit more about not what we all have in common, which probably is a great deal, but what differentiates the Episcopal musical tradition. So what's distinctive? Well, first of all, what you won't find amplified music. You won't find pop styles, which call more attention to the performer. And you won't find electronic instruments, typically. There may be exceptions to this, but I've never encountered one. You won't find much jazz, except on All Saints' Day, when you will always find jazz. If you've never heard the jazz combo on the steps of Grace Cathedral on All Saints' Day, that's worth making a trip for. You will find a lot of Anglican chant. Anglican chant is a notation and a way of fitting free-form speech rhythm text to simple tunes. There are like little staples and accents and braces to show you how how to sing a long line or a short line all to the same tune. And we do this every Sunday at St. John's. We sing the psalm to a rather simple tune, in our case, the Notre Dame tune. There are fancier ones. If you want to browse through this service music section of the hymnal, you'll see lots and lots of these originally plain chant tunes, which we use to much of the liturgy. There are other chanted liturgies, also in the service section of the, drawn from the Book of Common Prayer. We don't do those so much here at St. John's. Occasionally, you will hear this in its full glory in the formal services at Grace Cathedral. And if you've never been to choral evensong offered every Thursday in Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, I urge you to try to do that. It's just gorgeous. You get the choir of men and boys. You may get to sit up in the altar. They do the whole thing with the chanted liturgy. The other distinctive thing about our hymnal is how much of it comes from plain chant. The really familiar hymns, you know, what you did last week, "The Mighty Fortress is Our God," the ones, a lot of those have crossed over into our hymnal, but they originated as Lutheran hymns. Much of the Episcopalian hymnal is drawn from plain chant. I went through and actually counted them. The table of contents is a pretty rich source that will show you the historical evolution of this. Plain song, plain chant, is the source of more individual hymns in the hymnal than any other single source. Now, the next most credited source is the English composer Ralph Vaughan Williams, the 20th century composer. Even ahead of Bach, he's got more lines and more numbers against his name. I looked through some of the Vaughan Williams hymns, and none of them jumped out at me as likely to be terrifically familiar to you, except maybe he set the doxology. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. It was sung at Elizabeth II's coronation. You need a big organ for that, and we don't even have a pianist tonight, so I didn't pick that. Anyway, Vaughan Williams was not himself particularly religious. He called himself a happy agnostic. What he did do, though, was set a large number of sacred texts and poems. And I thought we would sing one all together. I'll sing the first verse, I'm afraid. And then we'll go back to the first verse, and you guys can sing along with me. This poem is by George Herbert, who was a 17th century metaphysical poet and Anglican cleric. It's Vaughan Williams set a whole song cycle of these poems as 5 mystical songs. Now, if you're a classical music buff, you've obviously heard Vaughan Williams' Rhapsody on the Theme of Thomas Tallis. Tallis is another major hymn writer, but not as many as Vaughan Williams still in the hymn book. Anyway, so Vaughan Williams set this very beautiful set of series of poems set together is called The Temple. And the fourth of these is called Call. This is built on the biblical verse, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Well, he calls it the call, and the poet said, come my way, my truth, my light. It's a beautifully structured poem, and this poem the structure is more evident if you read the text down below rather than with its lines stacked up. So I'm just going to sing the first verse for you so you can get familiar with the melody, and then I'm just begging you all to sing out. Make like you're in the shower. Don't leave me all alone up here, all exposed without so much as an accompaniment. First, I need to find an E flat. I wish I had time to talk about the medieval modes and how we got our do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale, but I won't. Come my way, my truth, my life, such a way as gives us breath, such a truth as ends all strife. back to the top, and on the third verse, we'll raise it a half pitch just for fun. Come my way, my truth, my life, such a way as gives us breath, such a truth as ends all strife, such a life as the second verse is about communion. And such a feast was mens in length. Mens in length is an antiquated phrase for fixes over time. That if you repeatedly take communion, it fixes things for you. If anyone knows such a strength as makes his guest, if you can figure out what that means, come see me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. That was wonderful.